Chapter 24. With the venom and antidote in our possession, we moved on to the second step in our plan. Mom was a decent sorceress, though she hadn't used her magic in a while. Her specialty was creating illusions that looked absolutely real. The next day, I waited for Dargo to leave the palace on a Bethelback tour of the island. It had been over 100 years since he'd last seen it, after all. Mom and I tried to enter the palace through the front, but the red-faced soldiers stopped us. No one was allowed inside while the king was gone, they said. The dead, defiant soldiers still swung outside the palace. I wasn't discouraged, telling Mom outside the gates about my ability to ride the wind. We casually walked along the edge of the cliff on which the palace stood, and then we jumped. The wind caught us a few feet from the water's surface, carried us over the gates and up toward Dargo's bedroom. The balcony door was open again, so we walked in, and I reflexively looked at the birdcage right inside. The cage was still covered. Mom and I walked to the wardrobe and took out the skeleton. Mom placed a small red gem in its place and muttered a spell. Seconds later, a new skeleton was there. It looked exactly like the old one. "This should hold for a while," she said, "in case he checks." "Can he touch it?" I asked. "No, so let's hope he only looks at it the way he did when you were here." We left the way we came in and took the skeleton home on Bethelback. Mom was able to make it look like a little girl, though the girl said and did nothing. Mom had to carry her to her Bethel and hold her while we rode. No one seemed to notice anything wrong. Victor, Anila, Mom, and I took the skeleton to the second island, which was no longer being guarded, and tossed the bones into the acid pool. At first, nothing happened, and we all worried. "Will Dargo know something happened to his skeleton?" Anila asked. "Will he feel it?" "Hopefully not," I said. "Though, we have it covered if he decides to check on it." A moment later, the skull started to sizzle and white bubbles appeared. Soon, the skeleton was no more. We took a moment to appreciate the significance. We were just one step away from getting rid of Dargo forever. Then Mom said, "Now what?" "Now," I said, "we kill Dargo." Anila went up to the palace after Dargo returned and requested to speak with him. She managed to convince the new king to hold a banquet to celebrate his return to power. Invites were sent to every islander. That was when Esteban, Victor, Mom, and I went to work. The banquet was held the next day. The palace was full of Dargonians, but the banquet hall managed to hold all 100 of us. We took our seats as Dargo entered through a door at the head of the long table. No one touched the food that was laid out by Verna and her team of cooks. Before she left, Verna winked at Anila. "Welcome, everyone," Dargo said clearly from his spot. I sat next to Mom and Anila, with Esteban and Victor sitting across from us. "I am deeply honored to have you all here to celebrate a new era for Dargo Island. While I was gone, Rockney managed to integrate the island with the mainland, tainting our world with the evils of the other. No more. We don't need them. You all think I am evil, but I am not. I heard my tainted story told in the history classes, and I am saddened. I was cast out by a world that didn't understand me. They wanted to kill me and my kind. Rockney was a wizard, just like me. He was a tad misguided. I know what he tried to do. He tried to replace his brother as the nature demon." I looked at Mom, confused. How could he possibly know that? "I know," Dargo continued, as if reading my mind. because he told me so himself. He used to visit me in my prison, long after he put me there. He kept me updated about the changing world. For every new technology the world created, I grew angrier. The world I hated with every fiber of my being was evolving while I rotted away in a cage on an island no one could see. I feared none of my fellow islanders, my people, cared what happened to me. But then, Emil came to my aid. Dargo looked at Andor, who sat next to Victor. Andor said and did nothing, only stared. Andor's great-grandfather stole the key from Rockney and released me from my prison. Once I had control over him, I returned to my hidden lair to unleash my birds, just the way I planned to before Rockney dethroned me and put Anila's ancestor in my place. He glared at Anila with Josh's eyes. Unfortunately, he said, looking at the rest of the hall, an earthquake trapped me in my chamber by the well. Emil perished and... He seemed to consider what to say next. And the rest is history, my friends. I looked at Mom again. I was right, I said. Congratulations, dear, she said sarcastically. And now I have Andor to thank for rescuing me again. Dargo raised a goblet. Your loyal family has ensured the continuation of Dargo Island. He held his goblet in front of him, waiting. You won't drink with me? He asked Andor. Mom and I stared at Andor as he slowly reached for his goblet. There's my boy, Dargo called cheerfully before taking a huge gulp of his wine.